loud. All right. Well, we have fun stuff to talk about today, and I want to make sure to make good use of your time. So I think we'll go ahead and get started with introductions because we do have several folks on the call, and we want to make time to share a little bit about ourselves. We will, yes, happy Halloween. Thank you for joining us on Halloween. And some people might have to leave early because of that. So I think what we'll do is, as we said, please give your name and your institution. And then if you would share a short item about your favorite Halloween costume, or feel free to share a picture of it if you want to. And I will make it possible, although that might take too much time to share pictures. You can just hold it up. I think that's probably good. I am going to, for view, okay, can you, everybody see me and hear me okay, by the way? Okay, good. And I'm Ann Robinson, and I'm the chair of the Media Relations and Writing Learning Community, which has been fun. And it's been great to become more involved in ACE through the learning communities. And maybe as we get started, I'm going to let my co-leaders in our learning community introduce themselves first, and then we'll go popcorn style to others. And I should say that I am with Iowa State University College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I'm a writer. I write about research and water quality most of the time. And okay, Dee, how about you?
Yes, I'm Dee. I'm from North Carolina State University. I work for the Plant Sciences Initiative here by day and often as a retired person as well. My favorite costume, I think, was a one that a neighbor made for me. It was a clown costume, just because it was handmade and not. I don't know if you guys remember those plastic masks with the little elastic strings on the back and make your face all sweaty. This was like my face could breathe. I loved it. And I guess I'll pass it to Alyssa. Is she on here? Yeah, there she is.
Yeah, sorry. I forgot we were doing the picture thing. I don't know that this is per se my favorite, but that's what I'm wearing today in the chat. Um, Due to living in hospitals Monday through Wednesday, I wasn't able to dress up those 3 days. I usually dress up the whole week. So today is a random conglomeration of all the outfits I was going to wear. So kind of just sort of look like a weird gothic version of The Greatest Showman today. Um, but to be honest, a favorite, so sorry, I think I was supposed to introduce myself first. I'm Elisa Boswell Gore, and I'm the Ag Research Communications Coordinator at Oklahoma State University. And I don't know that I have a favorite. I'm very hardcore with Halloween. I have worn a lot of costumes that are outlandish and fun. I think I do have a very big soft spot for my first ever costume though. I was not allowed to celebrate Halloween growing up, so the first time I ever dressed up, I was 18 years old. And I had a homemade jester costume with the big old poofy pants in rainbow striped colors and a fun jester hat. And so I think I have a little bit of a warm spot for that first costume just because it was super fun and it was homemade.
Okay, Elisa, let's go popcorn style and quickly um, name somebody else to introduce themselves. And I think we
Oh,
will have to
sorry.
kind of give quick introductions because we have the great problem of having quite a few people on our call today.
Yeah, I apologize. I forgot I was supposed to name them at next person. Toby.
Hi, I'm Toby Blanchard with the LSU Ag Center. I think my favorite costume was my sister and I. We are twins. We went as a mirror. we dressed the same and we had a big frame between us, and that was fun and cute. And I will pass it to Chris.
Just checking to see if I'm only Chris in here. I'm Chris Branham at Oregon State University, Extension Communications. I'm a news and public affairs manager here. I would guess that probably, I mean, I don't remember a lot about costumes, but I do remember I was definitely had my heart set on a Luke Skywalker costume. Yes, I was old enough for that to be a costume that year when it was happening. But my mom insisted on making a homemade like Luke Skywalker costume, and I was really upset because it didn't look as well as I wanted it to. And that was probably the only one I remember. So actually, I think I'm naming my least favorite costume. So anyway, I will pick Whitney Baxter.
Hey everyone, I'm Whitney Baxter. I'm the Assistant Director of Communications for the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Iowa State University. So I have two younger sisters and a younger brother, and one year we all went as Barney, the dinosaur. My grandma sewed us all the costumes, so that was interesting, I'm sure, for people watching a bunch of Barneys walk from house to house. And I will pick, let's go with Latasha.
Hey, Whitney, I was just responding in the chat. It used to be one of my favorite shows as a kid. I had the Barney plate, sippy cup, all that. But anywho, I'm Latasha Ford. I'm with Fort Valley State University. I serve as the Research Communications Manager. Glad to be here. For Halloween, oh, I have a lot actually, but Mama just always make my costume, so Halloween is a fun time for me. But I guess I remember going back to D, a clown outfit. I do remember Mama making that for me. So, but I was a witch, princess, everything. But that was a fun outfit. I love that time when she made a clown outfit for me. So I'll pass it off to Andrea.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Putman, Assistant Vice President for Communications and Partnerships at the Office of Food, Ag, and Natural Resources at APLU. And I'm not sure if this is my favorite costume, but Toby, your comments gave me a flashback that I haven't thought of in decades. So I'll comment on that one. When I was a freshman in college and I had a wonderful roommate, one of us dressed in all white and one of us dressed in all black, and we were me and my shadow. So that was a fun one. And I will pass it off to Mandy.
Hi, I'm Mandy Gross. I'm the Senior Manager of Strategic and VP Communications for Oklahoma State University Agriculture. And one of my favorite costumes that I wore as a child was strawberry shortcake. And I remember when I had my second child, I had my first child dress up as strawberry shortcake, and her sister was the strawberry. So we got to recreate that. So that was a lot of fun. And I will pass it on to Jessica Stewart. I assume Jay is Jessica. Maybe not. Oh, pass that to Kaylee Long. I guess since they don't have their cameras on, maybe.
Hi, I am Kaylee Long. I am a local unit communications manager for 4 counties with K-State Research and Extension. I'm wearing a ghost sweater today to be festive, but I'm also going to drop my one of my favorite Halloween costumes from a child in the chat. My mother homemade every Halloween costume I had as a kid, and so this one is a penguin one, and it was the coldest Halloween, so I really appreciated that. So I'll share a photo. Who hasn't gone? Let's see. How about Frances Gould? Has she gone yet?
Well, or maybe she's having trouble unmuting or something. Maybe she could go next. maybe somebody else could go. Pick someone else. Let's hope they can.
How about Emma? Has Emma gone yet?
No, I haven't. So my name is Emma Landy. I don't do Halloween costumes at all, but I enjoyed buying costumes for my children when they were younger. Now they are older and I don't do that anymore. Um, I'm a journalist and writer for the University of Nevada, Reno College of Agriculture, Biotech and Natural Resources. I write articles, reports, press releases, impact statements, and a host of marketing content. And I'm happy to be here and looking forward to learning more about working with the media. Thank you. And I think I'll pick maybe Inka.
Hi, sorry, it's lunchtime over here, so I was like, I don't know if I want my camera on. Um, yeah, I am the public affairs manager for the Oregon Forest Resources Institute. And a favorite Halloween costume that I had was I had this pair of white lace gloves. And then I also found a purple blouse and I dressed up as Prince and it was very fun.
You want to choose somebody?
Um, has Gerald gone?
Gerald has not. Please call me Jerry. All right, some of us are a certain age, and if you can see me, you see the haircut. This is the second time in my life I've had this haircut. I had a pretty hippie mom. We lived in North Texas, and after two Halloweens of being told not to wear the outfits because it was too hot, she went the other way, like many of you said, and made the outfit. And she got this, I'm gonna call it bottle of spray paint. It really wasn't spray paint, but it was something to put in your hair that made you look like a ghost. And we got like four houses down the street. My little sister started crying. Not uncommon for her to cry. But we went home because both of our hair was on fire. Were on fire. We ended up having to have our head shaved. So we had an allergic to reaction to the Halloween. What's great about it, and I don't have it, is we have a picture of like 15 minutes before that happened, where we're both smiling a little bit like Kaylee's picture. We're excited, we're ready to go, and then heads are on fire. But that would be my kind of memory of Halloween circa 1970 something. Would rather have had her, Chris, would rather have had my mom make me a Luke Skywalker outfit than have to go have my head shaved. So I think that's everybody. And I think we've all kind of gone down.
Okay, if anybody did not, like Delynn, get introduced,
Delynn,
go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Delynn. I'm from North Carolina State University with Dee, and I'm a writer and editor there. My favorite Halloween costume was one that I made with my daughter, and it was an Italian restaurant kind of costume. You take a box and you put a tablecloth over it, and you fit that over your head and shoulders. And then we made her a little bowl of spaghetti out of yarn and styrofoam balls painted to look like meatballs. And then she had a headpiece that was a little comb in her hair, and it had meatballs and spaghetti coming down over her hair. So we both wore that. She got to wear it first, but it was a lot of fun to make together. And I think that's maybe one of the commonalities is having somebody make something for you or making something is a lot of fun. Has Whitney gone?
Yes.
Whitney, you did go. Okay.
Is anybody else out there that didn't get introduced, like maybe Mandy?
Or Katrina.
Sherry? Or Katrina? Yeah. Just jump in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katrina. I'm with Iowa State University as a student writer. So yeah, as growing up, we didn't really do much Halloween, so I don't really remember a lot of my costumes. But I remember I was a maid one time and I had a duster and everything. So that's one costume I did remember.
Cool. Thank you, Katrina. Good to have you with us. Mandy, did you get introduced?
I did. I was
Yes.
just going
Okay.
to her
Okay.
page.
Right. All right. Maybe everybody did. Oh gosh, there's several people that I did not see that needed to be introduced. Welcome to the people that just joined us. Sorry that I didn't see you needed to be admitted. And so I'm gonna uh, say if you want to quickly introduce yourselves and tell your favorite Halloween costume, those who haven't had a chance. Okay, anybody?
Frankie Gould.
Hi, Frankie.
My mic finally works, but I still can't get my camera to work. Anyway, um, I'm gonna say that I'm in costume every day because most people think that I dress too wildly and colorful and lots of jewelry. So that's every day I'm in costume. And
Oh, that's nice.
I'm
Yeah,
the
good for you.
associate vice president for communications for the LSU Ag Center.
Okay, welcome. And yes, Elise is saying never. I love that you love bright colors. Amen. And I'm going to say that one of my favorite Halloween or most memorable Halloween get-ups was going with several friends in college, all dressed up as the rock band Kiss. That was very fun. Somewhere I still have pictures of those to dig out and show my daughter. All right. Well, I am, unless we missed somebody, and I'm just double checking. Nope, I don't think I have any more people to admit. Going to go ahead and introduce our MC for the discussion about the news media and reaching the news media, in today's climate, which is not always very easy, can be confusing and frustrating. So we'll share tips, and Jerry will kind of share some tips of his own, I think. And Jerry is Executive Director of Communications Solutions. He manages all marketing and communications ranging from news service and publishing to content creation and marketing and communication strategy at Kansas State University, right? Prior to this position, he was the Director of Communications for the Kansas Department of Labor and previously led global communications for large multinational enterprises, not-for-profits. He has degrees in history from Kansas State University and communications from the University of Texas at Arlington. He's a member of our media relations and writing learning community, but he's also involved in several other LCs, most of ACE LCs, I think, including leadership and management, marketing and social media, and publishing and graphic design. So thanks a lot for being with us today, Jerry, and helping moderate this communication chat.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Halloween costumes aside, I really was tickled by the name of this one because, boy, I assume all of us have been ghosted by the media. Just to kind of get this going this morning, media relations, we were talking before we kicked this off. I looked at 4 sites this morning, including the New York Times, since their team lost the World Series last night. And the World Series didn't lead on any of the sites other than ESPN. So what you would think would be the biggest sporting event out there doesn't get any attention. It's all election oriented. That shouldn't surprise anybody. But that's kind of the environment we live in, right? It's the what's the clickbait, what's going to drive eyeballs. Stories rotate very quickly based on the time of day also. And simply every reporter has about 14 different things he or she needs to do on a daily basis. So we're all going to be ghosted if we haven't been ghosted. If you haven't been ghosted, good for you. You should be leading this, not me. And if you do have some tips and techniques, I do think you can share. So I'll start with what I think is kind of basic 101. And that being, you got to be really honest with yourself and your clients on if your news is newsworthy, if what they think, what you think your announcement is newsworthy. And then you need to be really honest on what's the value of that. A lot of what we do on the extension side is evergreen. So, you got to approach it from that point of view and what's the opportunities in that. Secondary to that, on the kind of the College of Ag side that we support in this department, very research based. What's the value in that, and are you even needing to think about mainstream media, let alone trade media? Where can you interact with that? So I think that's probably number one, is really be honest. We have a tendency to think our swim lane is the whole pool. I've heard that expression multiple times with media relations, and I think that's very correct. A very good one to give. You are in a swim lane, and you need to keep to your swim. When you're in your swim lane, sometimes it can feel like it's the whole pool, but usually it isn't, and they'll slap you back. The second tip I'd give here is warm up with your regulars. Before you decide you need to go out and pitch national media or take a step forward, talk to your locals, talk to your go-tos, and get a real feel for them on what's the value of this. They're gonna report about it. I have no problem picking up the phone and talking to Topeka or Kansas City or Wichita media and pitching them a story first and getting their read on it. A lot of them, obviously, the Topeka paper is a Gannett paper. Both Wichita and the Kansas City papers are McClatchy papers. They will give you a read on whether or not there's an expanded value into your news. Your television stations are all owned by some conglomerate somewhere also. Gray TV happens to own a lot of them in Kansas. You can ask them, is there an expanded value in this? We tend to also think, some of us, that our news that we work on is important beyond our state's borders. That is relative, I think. This goes back to my first point. Kansas is, right, wrong, or indifferent, a flyover state. You are going to have a hard time getting the New York Times to write about beef issues from Kansas when they can get somebody from Stacy's state of Connecticut to get on a train and be down there and be in the studio in an hour. Both of them can talk about avian flu affecting, cows. One can be there, the other one can schedule a Zoom. They're going to go with the one that can be in studio, right? So I think you just continually have to go back to that being honest with yourself model on what you have. So those are kind of my baselines when I start thinking about media relations and being ghosted. The final point, third point, before we start working around the Zoom here, is this. I think everybody who has been in a media relations, with me at ACE, and we've talked about this before, has heard me say this. You are closer to a salesperson on media relations than you are any other marketing practice. If you can get a reporter to respond to your email or a phone call, you have about 10 to 15 seconds to sell them on your news. So you better have your pitch down. You better know what differentiates your pitch from everybody else's, and you better hit those points quick and hard. That will hook the reporter. Then you can have a discussion. That is a very different strategy than for me calling somebody in Topeka where I have a relationship with. But if I'm doing a cold call, that's the way I'm following up after my initial email. And my suggestion with that is listen to people, listen to a few salespeople, talk to a few salespeople. How do they get, if you're not getting a call back, there's a reason. Then how do you approach from email from a different point of view? There are thousands of different strategies out there, but you are closer in a media pitch on a cold call to a salesperson than you are to a communicator at that point. So keep that in mind. It's an uncomfortable place to be. Some of us are better at that than others. I get that. Some of us don't like to be confrontational, and some of us don't like to hound a reporter, but that is what it takes at times for our news. And it just takes one, right? Sometimes it's just the right story in the right place, and it sets the fire that you need to get 3 or 4 more stories out of it. So be thoughtful on who you're chasing and why. The AP reporter is busy. The AP reporter you chase, that may not be the case for the in Kansas. I'll give an example: the Ottawa Herald. They got a readership of 3,000. There is no reason to continue to chase that reporter down if he or she doesn't call you back. But the AP, probably so, because if they write the story, it's likely to run in 2 or 3 states. So, and I kind of wanted to stop there and start working around and either answer questions or start getting some other strategies and tips and techniques from people on this Zoom.
Thanks. That sounds like a good start, good food for thought as we begin a discussion. And I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to ask a first question to the group and you, Jerry. How much help do you think these different news services that we can put our information out on make a difference? Here at Iowa State and Cal's, we're just really starting to think more about that as we get less coverage of our stories just from sending them out, which we haven't done a very good job of marketing, I think, in general. So we're just starting to think more about that.
I'll respond first. I have seen very little value in those services beyond their ability to give you numbers that you can't translate to leadership. Okay, and what I mean by that is they will use we use Meltwater as one of our platforms, and they can give us 50 million hits if we count every blog and or news service that replicates that story that at the bottom of a web page that no one's going to click. Right? At the end of the day, I think it's important if you use those services to do 2 things in your reporting, Ann. One is give those gross numbers that this is what the platform that you're using is reporting, but a call out for your leadership on what the media pieces are that had the biggest impact from your perspective. So there's a value and a volume report there that you give. In our dashboards, we always call out the top 10 stories that we've pitched over the course of the quarter and links to those stories. And then we use in a different slide kind of the platform and what it's helped us generate over the course of the quarter. Ironically, the stories we think will be big on the platform sometimes are not the ones that are. But if you do a story about bats in the attic, you're going to run everywhere, right? So the question is do the bats in the attic story, is that really what's the most important piece of news you've reported out for the year or the half of the year or for the quarter or for the month?
Okay, people, this is a coffee chat. Chime in, chat.
So Jerry, I'm kind of curious just because you had mentioned getting on the phone with your local media and such. This is actually something that I've really been thinking a lot about as far as our approach with media, because a lot of what we do is through uh, media pitches via email. And I have thought a lot about the fact that we may need to better personalize our approach by making phone calls. So have you found that to be a lot more effective for you, picking up the phone and calling media to pitch?
I do. I think there's a couple strategies for that. I have a list of about 10 go-tos. And so they're always looking for interesting news from Kansas State. So when I feel like the news has a higher angle than just things to worry about canning in 2024, then I often go to them directly. I'm also not opposed to giving an exclusive to a reporter. Usually it's the exclusive is, okay, you have this the day the news comes out, and then we're going to put it out the following day. All right, so there's kind of a timed there. I think that works well for most of our major announcements that we do from the college or from the extension service. You know, reporters are like us. They tend to use technology more and more, and the phone part of our mobile phones is less used every day. But if they pick up and they say, "Hey, Jerry," or they say, "Hey, Jennifer," or they say, "Hey, Karen, Emma," I'm just going by the names here on the Zoom, you know you know they're taking you as a serious resource going forward for them, or at least a respected resource, if not serious. And then there's the old part of that where you have to take their phone calls back, right? So when they call you and say, "Hey, I can't get through to the athletic department," or your division of communications or marketing isn't responding, you got to do a little legwork for them. But I think that's kind of the reciprocal relationship, the infinity loop, if you will, that you have to build with those reporters. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, sorry. Should I go forward? All right. Gary, I have a question for you. What services do you use to get reporters' phone numbers or email addresses? So, for example, I tried using the MacRack, and I still just have difficulties tracing certain reporters who I think might be interested in some of our expert sources or some of the interesting agricultural news articles that I write. So I wanted to just get your opinion on that.
So this is how we do it here. We use Meltwater. That is the tool we use to find new reporters in areas where we may not have established relationships already. What we do is we have our student workers go over those lists twice a year. All right, and make sure those lists are up to date.
Okay.
And often add to those lists. So in our case, we have some trade media located in Kansas City. I will pave the road for that student worker, and I'll say to the editor, "Hey, we're going to come to you. We need an updated list of your reporters. We also need the updated email addresses for those reporters because they do have high turnover in that business."
Right.
And she'll be reaching out to you. We're not asking you to fill anything out. She'll do all the legwork on it, but please, when she calls or if she emails you, at least give us the updated names and the updated list. Ironically, a lot of them have that ready to go, Emma. They just don't publish it on their website, right? Because then they get spammed. That is how we do it. It's a little labor intensive and it feels like 1996 still,
right.
the way we do it, but that is, we have found still the best way to make sure our media lists are up to date.
Thank you so much.
We also have when we put our press releases out, our news stories out, you can sign up, and on our website, it takes you to a link to sign up. The link takes you to our website to sign up, and then you're in our listservs after that. So those are the two kind of push and pull.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Sure.
Are you sending news releases? And this question could be for anyone. Are you sending them out? Like Jerry, you mentioned you use Meltwater. We use Meltwater as well. I don't send my releases through Meltwater, but is anyone doing that and finds that useful? We have our own 1996 way of sending news releases. So I'm just curious about who might be using a platform to send them out and if it's actually getting, I'm always afraid of spam and them not getting it.
We just send ours through Outlook. We don't have
that's what
a
we
specific
do.
platform. Yeah.
Same here.
And we've mostly had success with that. I don't feel like we've had a whole lot of bounce backs or failures to send. Some here and there, but not a whole lot.
Same here, Toby, at Fort Valley. Via email, Outlook, old school, that works.
Do you guys that use Outlook have any, I guess, is there a way to track to see your open rate or anything like that? Because we use eye contact to do that.
Yeah, we only if we can look at the clicks back to the website. from it. But otherwise not really. So that was the other thing I was thinking of with Meltwater, if it would give us a little more analytics behind it and who's actually opening it and looking at it, but we just haven't made that switch. And I don't know if we want to make that switch.
Toby, I
Yeah,
can tell you,
see.
at least from our experience, Meltwater does not give you the granular reporting that you would be looking for in that scenario. It would still be numbers driven. So if you've got 36 on Outlook and you've got 42 on Meltwater, is it worth the $800 a month to pay for that one particular part of the service?
I'm really glad you guys are talking about this because this is something that we here at CALS were just starting to consider. Yeah.
We use we here at Oregon State, we use Cision. It's the model we have is we have a media relations office. We pay to get a seat at the table for Cision and Extension Communications. We have a model here where the colleges and academic units do not send out news releases. The only two units that send out news releases are our media relations office and us, Extension Communications, and we are not sending out very many news releases anymore. Um, Extension Communications, I mean. But I found Cision to be valuable in that it will show you, like, for the people you're sending, and it goes out through Outlook. It syncs with Outlook. So what happens is the emails go out through Outlook. But it shows you like who opened it. It shows you like the individual down to the individual person who got the email. What have they opened? So if somebody's on there and they consistently open our releases, I will keep them on our list. If they haven't opened a news release in 2 years, obviously I'm going to delete them off our list. It can be tricky though, because those open rates can be like, how much time did they actually spend on it? Maybe they didn't really look at it, but it still counts as an open. But I found Cision to be good, but in echoing Jerry, they can't keep up because we have so much turnover. So it's always good. I particularly look for bounce backs. So essentially, that will be people who don't no longer have the email address, or they have an have I no longer work here kind of thing. Although journalists don't really put those I no longer work here emails out, but they do need it. I would suggest basically, if you're going to monitor, do it more than 2 times a year, because our turnover is just, you know, it goes fast in Oregon.
Jerry, I have a question on a different subject. You had mentioned that for a cold call, cold outreach, that typically you would expect 10 to 15 seconds to, you know, to get some interest. And so, putting you on the spot here, could you give us an example of like a story you might pitch and what sorts of things you would bring out in 10 to 15 seconds? I'm not going to time you, but
Okay. So typically, Andrea, you start off with obviously the introduction, then you're asked, did you receive the news release we sent to you on Andrea Putman? She recently got back from a trip with USDA to investigate how many fields in Ukraine had been impacted from bombing from the Russians. She has a very unique story to tell on that. Not everybody is getting that story. Would you be interested in it? Then you have to play off of however the reporter answers, right? Yeah, well, I've pitched this to my editor, or yeah, I'm interested in it. I just can't get to it because I'm working on this, and this. Well, then you might decide that there's a timeliness angle to it, and we really need to talk to a different reporter if you can't pick it up, right? Or it might be, yeah, I'm really interested in this. Can I talk to you tomorrow? Great. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you tomorrow. What time? Can I call you at this number? Right? And would you like me to set up a Zoom? Just keeping them on the line, just playing with them, if you will. We're trying to get them in. You've got the fish hooked. You just need to reel it in at that point. That would be an example of how I would go about it, of doing it. Another way of doing it is just simply saying, hey, Andrea, thanks for your time today. I've pitched you on this. I don't know if you've opened the email, but here are the 3 things in the story where I think would be of interest to you. Boom, boom, boom. Does any one of those or all three of those interest you? Because I have an expert that can speak to that. I do that a lot. That one I just gave with the farm bill. I've been doing that a lot lately with the farm bill. We have a chair of the Barry Flinchbaugh Chair at Kansas State University. She can talk to you about what's going on with the U.S. Farm Bill right now. That's obviously a bipartisan bill that comes it cycles almost every year in some way, somehow. It's sitting and it's not moving forward. And you know your constituents are worried about this in your state. She can speak to you either on background or do a story with you right now to set up where we go as we move towards the election. Usually you'll get a yes on that, right?
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things I'm hearing from you is that when you can hook it to a current event, whether it is your example from the Ukraine or whether the farm bill, that probably helps things along in terms of stimulating the interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also sounds like you cultivate, right? So here's this expert on the farm bill. Maybe you don't need plan a story in the next week or two, but maybe in 6 weeks or whatever. I mean, I would think that like so many business relationships, the cultivation is really important.
Absolutely. And again, that goes back to what I said earlier about when they call you and say, hey, can you help me that somebody is not getting back to me on what I need? You do a little legwork for them, right? Always this is a relationship, right? At the end of the day, this is always about relationships. They're not long standing as they were when I started my career 1,000 years ago. You're not meeting for lunch anymore. You're not doing those types of things, but you are cultivating a relationship. And I would even bring it back to knowing what I said at the very start. You got to know if your news is strong or if your news is weak. Pitching crap is still pitching crap. It's either lead or gold, right? And some of this is gold. So you're just pressing the reporter to say, yes, I need to make time for that. Some of it is like, man, we can't dress that up. There's no lipstick to go on that pig. But you've got to tell your clients you work for them. And so that's, it's not personal, but that happens too. I've been told no many more times than I've ever been told yes, right? So I will be honest about that. Thanks for putting me on the spot, by the way. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Kind of related to that, I am wondering, people talk about, pitching. We don't do much of that. We send out a lot of alerts. I mean, a lot of stories. Get some of them out there. And I'm wondering about media alerts or pitches versus doing our own stories. Or when you reach out, do you usually have a story in your back pocket that you're trying to sell? Or are you trying to get them still, like in the old days, to write their own story?
I don't think I've done a media alert in a long time. I would say years. I am always so we have a weekly editorial meeting, the department, where we sit down and we look at the next 2 to 3 weeks worth of stories in the short term, and other stories we spend more time crafting. If we believe that we have a high profile story that will generate a lot of potential for media relations, we will pull that story in from the list of stories that just go out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we will build a strategy around that story. A lot of those stories can go and they get great coverage. Again, bats in the attic as the example. We don't have to make our rodents professor available for that. It's going to run. But if we have a story with an expert who has done research in the area of viruses jumping from one species to another, we will cultivate that story out and we will place it around, say, a news piece that we know is coming out around, bovine avian flu, and he or she can speak to that. That would be one that we specifically pitch and we specifically go with a backstory to the media with on that subject matter expert. The Farm Bill fits within that example also. So we've lined up 3 or 4 things, and then we go and we pitch that to the reporter. And there might be news around, there will be news around it that we will put out as a general news release, but we will hold that till we can get a media strategy in place and see if we can get some very high level coverage beforehand.
Thanks.
Jerry, what sort of media strategies do you use?
I remain very flexible on media strategies because the news has to fit the media that you are pushing it to. So I will go back to the Ukraine. We have a researcher. This is a great example because it came up at ACE a couple years ago. We have a woman who works in Ag Econ here at Kansas State University who ran the Ag Econ department at a university in the Ukraine, and she has a refugee story. Her husband was a freedom fighter at the time. He's here now, and she is reporting on grain exports from the Ukraine to the rest of the world. We would never have problem pitching that story to any media, but her accent is so thick I cannot pitch her to radio or television. So my strategy is very, in her case, it's very written focused. So we put together pitches and story ideas that enable trade publications and media that write about that in the state of Kansas more in long form than we would do, say, on Ag Today segment on Saturday mornings on a local TV station in Wichita. We would say, okay, if we're going to do television, we need to think about more of a PBS show where she would be on for 15 minutes talking to a host who will spend time with her, calling out the answers, and she could feel comfortable in the way she gives them. So I give that as an example of you have to apply your strategy to based on what your news is and your ability to deliver the news.
Thank you.
I'm curious how everyone handles sending out news releases. Do you send it out to your entire list, or do you reach out individually or to certain groups who you might think would be interested in that story? How do you guys approach that?
I'll jump in here. We more than not send it out to a full list. But if some things are hyper local, maybe it's just interesting to the Baton Rouge media, or maybe it's just interesting to the North Louisiana media, we'll do that. And some things that are specific to the ag media, we'll have those list within list to make sure that we're not sending. We probably do send too much to the whole list, but we try not to send everything to the whole list. And if it goes local, then, if it's super local, it doesn't have to go to everything.
As far as our editorial pieces, we tend to, most of those send out to a general distribution list that we have as well. Something that we've been really trying to work a lot harder with in the past year or so is I guess just being really strategic about what we do with each piece of content. Like, what is the value in this content and who does it have value for? And therefore, how should we share this content? So we've kind of started looking at it instead of automatically making everything a press release. Is this more viable for social media? Would it get better attention there? Would this be better served as a video? Would this be better served as an editorial piece? So we've been trying to get a little more strategic about what kind of content something should be and why, and what audience that would appeal to the most. Along with that, something I'm trying to do, because I largely develop and manage our distribution list. And so something I'm trying to also get a lot more strategic about is having a lot more specialty media outlets, like specialty publications and things along those lines on our list. rather than just distributing to general radio stations, TV stations, newspapers. We're trying to get more targeted publications, like, for example, magazines that are geared towards entomology or magazines that are geared towards animal science. Kind of develop those lists so that any story we put out that involves cattle or beef industry in any way, that is going to be specialty publications that are related towards beef and cattle. So those are kind of just some ways we're trying to be more strategic and improve. Andy, I don't know if you want to throw anything in on that. Mandy's in my same department and she has to be super strategic about everything in her position. So
Well, I would agree with everything Elisa said. We just got done with a big campaign building a new ag hall. And so we were really strategic in how we distributed our information regarding that. And I think it goes beyond press releases too. We developed a monthly newsletter that had different content within that newsletter that we sent out to different audiences as well. And so I think you have to think of it more as a strategic campaign versus just sending out press releases and trying to get your message out past the media as well. And target your different audiences, especially like if you have a fundraising campaign going on. So, I mean, that's kind of a lot of the things that we dealt with with this building is trying to get information out to our alumni and friends to try to complete our fundraising campaign. So.
Whitney, myself, I've been able to get a few hits, just narrowing down on the right social media hashtags. Yeah, so I've been able to, I mean, like, for example, if you're writing a story about a project that's been funded by NIFA, hashtag NIFA always gets me a few good calls, including NIFA itself, and they've been able to publish some of our writings on their blogs. So I think also being strategic about those types of things, hashtags and all that, that is also something else that we might want to consider.
Thank you, everyone. Great information.
Whitney, we're all organized differently. We've all learned this at our ACE meetings, right? I'll pick on poor Kaylee here. So Kaylee is a kind of a local market specialist. We in our office support her model to reach out with her news to the media outlets in her area. She can do that two ways. She can do that herself, and then we kind of turn them loose there and let them do it. And we don't actually manage that. She manages that. We focus on statewide news. If it does not fit in a statewide model, it is probably not the right news for us to pitch because we would spend all day focused in local markets and not on other things that are more strategic. Not to say the local markets aren't strategic, but there are people in those markets to handle that. So that can get under some people's hair, right? That can get some people really worked up because, yeah, well, you don't think my news is statewide? No, actually, your news is great in the market you're in. Nemaha County, Kansas will love that news, but you need to pitch it through the Nemaha County Extension Office. So we kind of strategically look at our news from a statewide perspective. And this is simply just the statewide news. We're not talking about industry news. We're not talking about going national. As it may be better to have somebody local in market pitch that because they can be over there and they can develop that relationship with that reporter in a way that we cannot, even if we're targeting them out of Manhattan.
Thanks. This is a great discussion, and so glad to be getting some food for thought. That's very useful from Jerry and others. Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left. So if you have especially something you really want to be sure and share or ask, please. Yeah, I know one of mine final questions, well, one at this point, is what about student stories? We do a lot of student stories. To me, those are very local stories usually, but we send them out just like regular news releases, and wondering how other people handle them.
I'll answer just to keep it going. Depends on the news. I we if it is a big student story, our division of communications and marketing often takes that on because they want to use it for recruiting purposes. So if the student is a Rhodes Scholar or has won a Truman Award or something like that, they will take the lead on it even if it's an ag student. So we pass that along. We have found, back to the statements that were previously made, more and more of our student news does better on social media and gets responses on social media and gets reporters interested on social media, because the local mom or the local high school teacher then calls the reporter and says, did you see that Anne has made good at Kansas State? She's worked on this research project. And it happens that way. Plus, it gets a lot of engagement on other platforms. We may look to that as being the new model to go forward. When I get hey, we need to do a story on students, my eyes flutter a little bit. I have to behave. The upside on the news is just so limited for us.
I'll echo Latasha in saying that I think we get a lot of traction on our stories about students as well. It seems like people do always like to see students in stories. So we have, within our department, we have production focused teams who are focused on our production areas such as video, editorial, etc. But we also have mission based teams, which is what I would be. I'm focused strictly on ag research. We have a coordinator that's focused strictly on extension, and then we have an entire team called we call it our college team, and they're focused entirely on students, the student and academic element. And from what I have been privy to with them, they are pretty strategic about content as we are, where some things are editorial pieces, some things are social media pieces. I will say, as far as I have observed, they are very active on social media just because that is where students and young people are very heavily engaged. And along with promoting students, they're also very much about interacting with students. And when students are promoted, their families want to see it and so on and so forth on social media. So they do tend to be very heavily active on social media platforms. There was another thought I was going to add to that. I just went blank. So I guess I'm done.
One thing that my colleague here at Fort Valley does with student stories, and like you're echoing, yeah, we get a lot of engagement, especially on social, but media as well will pick it up. But one of our colleagues here, what she'll do, she's normally one responsible for pitching any of our stories to media. But usually when I'm doing a student story, since I'm the research communications manager, I always tie in the research. So if I'm interviewing a faculty member about their research, I always, at this point, they already know this. I want to know some students that are working on that research to tie in that student component to share their story. And sometimes I might pull that out and do something additional for our research report. But one of the things that she does is she'll find, because wherever their community, their hometown, she will send it to their local media, and they love to see it, and they'll share it within their newspaper or however they want to share it out. If it's with, with news media, if it's going to be broadcasting or whatever they may do, but usually definitely print news will share it.
Thank you, Latasha. You reminded me what my thought was that I completely forgot, is I was going to throw out that me and the extension coordinator also make it a point to work closely with the college team. I feel like, again, that's something we've gotten a lot better about doing in the last year, is working closely with them, because a lot of research involves students at OSU, which I'm sure is any institution, but A lot of undergraduates and graduates as well in the ag division are very heavily involved in research. And so I just make it a point, if there's ever students involved in a research project, I go to the college team and say, hey, how do you want to jump into this and use it on your end? So.
Jerry, you get the last word.
Okay. So my final strategy is this. Early in the evening, give out the Skittles and the Starburst and the gummy bears because little kids like those candies. Save your Milky Ways, your Reese's for the older kids, but be sure to keep a stash for yourself.
There, that sounds like some of the most useful advice of the day. And thank you all. It was great to get this discussion going. You know, it's one that we revisit from time to time, and there's always new ideas and information. So good to see you all. Happy Halloween. Take
Happy
care.
Halloween. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Happy
Yeah.
Halloween.